since your last appearance, there have been so many questions that have come out from parents, students, teachers. As you know, some of them have been answered, some of them can't be answered. But for the ones that can potentially be answered, what are you doing to try to ensure that all of these questions that folks have are being answered and addressed and put somewhere where they can get those answers?
Well, so there's questions related to the overall approach of the back-to-school plan. I believe that our back-to-school plan and the literature that's posted online can answer a lot of those questions, and we still want people to take the time to read through those, and also the information that's available to parents to help them get their kids ready to get back to school under these circumstances. I know that there's a lot of local questions too about what happens in our school. How do we implement these guidelines? Principals are stepping up to the plate. They're coming in early next week to start to communicate to their staff, answer questions to their staff on those minute operational details, and to begin local communication with their school communities. So we're, of course, answering any questions in the department on the plan, on its safety, on who's been consulted, and on the additional measures and investments that we're making to make getting back to school as safe as it can be while we reopen the economy. And I'm really pleased with principals and VPs for coming in early. I know no one likes cutting their summer short, but these are exceptional circumstances, and we appreciate them being there and answering to the call to come in early and help us on the local front.
One question that keeps coming up, at least in my office, is what all of this means for before and after school care. Can you talk about that a bit? Does it vary from site to site? Is there a general opinion on how that's supposed to operate?
Well, a lot of before and after school care is given by private businesses or local community groups, and there's some exceptions to that. You know, Excel would be one. They work at arm's length from the Halifax Regional Center of Education. So in terms of before and after school care, they have to follow the new health and safety guidelines, and they'll be available. So you know, that's what we know right now. Of course, private businesses are going to make their own decisions on what's economical and what they can provide in these uncertain times. And so I don't have an answer in terms of what each of those businesses is going to do from a decision standpoint. But we have health and safety guidelines in place. If they're going to function and provide before and after school care, they need to follow those.
Minister Carney is being applauded right now in New Brunswick for offering his personal cell phone number for, you know, parents and teachers who have concerns, but also committing to hold regular updates for parents and teachers. I'm wondering whether you'll consider following in his footsteps, either on the cell phone or the regular public updates.
Thanks for the question. I think, you know, we are providing regular updates. I've been in front of you folks fairly regularly. We also have our regional centers of education who communicate regularly to school communities, families, and students. And, of course, our principals are coming in to deal with those local questions either. So you'll undoubtedly keep getting regular updates from me on this file as you have to date. And we're here to answer as many questions as we can. And, again, I think we want to drive people to the literature that's available in the back-to-school plan. I know it's not always fun to read through, you know, that sort of material. There is an executive summary if people have some broad-based questions, so we do want people to access those materials as well.
Something that's not in the back-to-school plan is how drinking water is going to be addressed at school. Will fountains be back up and running? Will there be some kind of bottled water thing? Is that going to be safe with people handling them? How does that work? Yeah,
I mean, of course, any space where you're sharing, there might be some changes there. I'll get a specific answer for you on the fountain issue. I want to get clarity on that before I give you an answer, so I give you an accurate answer on that. But yeah, of course, you know, water quality. We're testing water right now. The test for lead will be completed by the end of August, and if there's any issues related to water quality, bottled water or remedial action, will be taken.
For kids who are old enough to be following all of this and paying attention to it and understanding what's going on, what would your message be to those students who may be feeling anxiety about the idea of going back to school and whether or not it's safe for them to be doing that?
Well, listen, this is an anxious time for everybody, and we know that and we appreciate that, particularly where we're looking at reopening and have been reopening our economy and getting back to school. You know, people are understandably anxious about the situation. We're in the midst of a global pandemic, the likes of which people living haven't seen before. So we understand that. But what I want to reassure families, our students, and our staff is that while we get our kids back to school, we are taking all precautions that we can to minimize and mitigate against the risk of COVID transmission. Families are counting on us to get their kids back to school. We know it's important for families. We know it's critical for students from a developmental perspective and an academic perspective. We currently are in an enviable position from an epidemiology perspective here in Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada. Right now, obviously, things can change, and we don't know what's coming. But if we continue to follow public health advice, if, as decision makers, we continue to lean on public health recommendations and follow the science around COVID-19, I believe we can get to a better state of normal where we can get our kids back to school, where they can do well, where we're not leaving a generation of kids behind because of this pandemic, and do so in a way that creates a high level of safety for everybody.
I just want to push on the public updates there. Would you consider more regular public updates, like committing once a week to, answer questions from the public or from parents or teachers or reporters?
So we are. I mean, I'm available more than once a week. We've conducted several interviews this week already. I don't believe that's true, Elizabeth. I've done a lot of interviews with you. So the regular communication is going to continue to go. When we have something new to say, this venue is really appropriate for that, particularly if there's a new public health advisory or direction that we're taking. And we'll continue to respond to questions as they come in. And again, I think there's a lot of resources out there for people. And I hope that people are taking the time to familiarize themselves with it. And I know you folks are doing that, but we also want parents, students, and staff to do that as well, because we know there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of questions, and to some of the questions I've seen, we do have answers in the back-to-school plan.
Heading to phones, I'm going to go to Jennifer Henderson on the phone.
I'll go back to you, Andrew. Oh, Jennifer Henderson on the phone line. Jennifer, do you have a question for Minister Churchill?
Yes, just a second. I'm struggling with my mute here. Hi, Minister Churchill. Can you tell us what the Department of Education is doing to secure connectivity for students that don't have internet in their homes?
So, the Department of Business and Development Nova Scotia is the lead on connectivity. So there's been some big investments in terms of expanding connectivity to high speed across the province, and I believe there'll undoubtedly be more projects announced moving forward. So we've actually seen a fairly solid reduction of the amount of students and households that do not have access to high speed. But what we're doing in the Department of Education is making sure that devices are available in the event that we have to go to a blended learning model where our older students will do the bulk of their learning from home. For those that do not have access to high-speed internet in that situation, we will be utilizing USB sticks where course material can be uploaded and coursework can be uploaded by use of USB sticks. And in the event of a blended learning model, again, the blended learning is if the epidemiology changes on COVID-19 and we have to move half of our students out of the school, and that would be the older half. Under a blended learning model, we will still have for the secondary students access to school facilities for specialized courses, or for students that need to access the internet if they do not have it at home. So there will be learning centers available in our system for students who want to utilize those opportunities, and for those that want to remain home, we'll have the USB model and the devices available. Again, we've purchased 14,000 computers. And those will be deployed to students in the event that we have to move to a blended learning model, those that don't have devices, obviously.
Jennifer, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, just quickly, Minister Churchill, is the department considering reducing class sizes at any level from P to 12 to meet those 2-meter distancing public health guidelines?
So yes, if we move to a blended learning model, if the epidemiology of this virus, from the perspective of public health, forces us to move to a blended learning model, half of our kids are coming out of school, and the younger grades will be split up based on the new facilities. Right now, we're in a position where we can get back. Public health is telling us we can get back to 100% capacity, and we can get all of our students in school. And I think that's a very good position to be in. And of course, that's how we want to keep this. We know that students are going to do their best when they're in school from a learning and developmental perspective. And we are in a position to do that now. And hopefully, I believe if we're all following the health and safety protocols, we can keep it that way. I do have an answer on the fountains. Fountains will not be in use this year.
Andrew?
Parents and teachers are still concerned about what might trigger a school shutdown. I know nothing's like set in stone, but I know that Dr. Strang had said that his staff are looking at different scenarios that might cause shutdown. So I'm wondering what's the status on that work, and when it's completed, those scenarios are completed, are they going to be put into the reopening plan so parents and teachers can see them?
I mean, that's a question better directed to public health. So we're taking our direction from public health on any changes to the school plan that we need to have based on the epidemiology. So in the education department, we're not experts in epidemiology. We're not experts on this virus. We will lean heavily on the direction and advice that comes from those folks that know best about this virus and know best how to respond. And I'm comfortable saying this because Dr. Strang said it at our last press conference, that they conduct an investigation in terms of every case. They look at contacts and make a determination on the risk level. So we leave that work in their competent hands, and our response to that will be dependent on their direction.
Any thoughts on running for party leadership?
I mean, honestly, I'm very focused on this. I do not have the liberty of taking my eye off the ball on the back-to-school plan. We're heading into the most uncertain fall that we've had, and I am duty-bound to remain focused on this. You know, party leadership's on everybody's mind. I don't think many of us expected to have to think about this as well, and so We'll see what happens there. I don't have any answers on myself at this point, and also don't know who else is necessarily interested at this point. But my focus is right here.
Sorry, just one quick question, because the Premier, when he was out earlier, talked about the approach to testing kids who are coming to university from outside of the Atlantic bubble. We typically get all kinds of international students coming to our junior highs and high schools. Do you have a sense yet of what those numbers look like, and how are we approaching them in terms of testing them?
So we're actually looking at that situation right now with public health, and we will be making a decision relatively soon on whether exchange students will even be entering the province at this point.
All the time that we have.
We're in conversations with public health right now on the risk level and on the best policy approach to that issue.
Final question will go to Andrew.
Just with the ventilations in schools, I know there's a review of the systems, but I just want to know, is there like a threshold that schools and classrooms have to meet for their for proper ventilation, like set down by Health Canada or federal guidelines? So and are you going to make sure that if there are you going to make sure that those are met?
We are legally bound to adhere to occupational health and safety protocols around air quality and ventilation in a regular year. So we do have occupational health and safety protocols around air quality and ventilation, and if there's ever any issues with air quality, we respond. We are going above and beyond the usual protocols this year because we want to make sure we're maximizing our ventilation system. So what I can tell you is yesterday the Halifax Regional Centre of Education confirmed that they've done their assessment of school ventilation systems in this region, and all of those systems are fully operational as of today. And other regional centers of education are in the process of completing their assessments, and if there's any ventilation issues, we will respond, and there will be a maintenance plan in place to make sure that all those ventilation systems are working to maximum capacity.
Thank you, Mr. Churchill.
Okay, thanks for your time.